From the popular apple that took 22 years to make, to Japanese grapes that sell for up to $450 a bunch, we traveled the world to learn how fruits are bred to perfection. Our first stop is Washington State University, where we learned why it took over $500 million to create the Cosmic Crisp apple.
In the late 90s, Washington State's apple industry was on the brink of collapse. That's because more than 100,000 acres of trees grown were for an apple that was losing popularity, the Red Delicious. Once a star of the supermarket, this apple is now criticized for its bland taste and mealy texture. By the end of the decade, farmers had lost about $760 million in 3 years. That's when Bruce Barrett stepped in.
I eat an apple every day.
And began breeding what would become the Cosmic Crisp. The goal was to have a fruit that was just as beautiful as the Red Delicious, but also had a sweet taste and a nice crunch.
We had all our eggs are in one basket, Red Delicious. That's not good economics. It's just not good. If we grow more and more of something that people like less and less, that's not a good business model either.
Since then, growers have increased production of other varieties, but the Red Delicious still counts for almost a third of apple tree acreage in the state today. To successfully take its place, the Cosmic Crisp needed to last at least 12 months, about 6 months longer than the Red Delicious. That's because the apple industry's Super Bowl is the fall season, when farmers harvest nearly all of the apples consumed throughout the rest of the year. So the goal is to find an apple that tastes as good in March as it does in October. Which is why Barrett chose the Honeycrisp and the Enterprise as the Cosmic Crisp's parents, for their crispness and storage qualities, respectively. But even then, it took thousands of trials and errors.
Take a bite. Soft, terrible. 10,000 seeds, and those seeds grew into trees, and we looked through 10,000 of them, and a couple showed promise, and the one that showed the most promise was Cosmic Crisp.
In the first few years of breeding, the Cosmic Crisp seeds grew into seedlings, and by year 4, the seedlings turned into trees and produced their first apple fruits. And by 2008, though the Cosmic Crisp didn't even have a name, it had promising characteristics.
The selection that is now named Cosmic Crisp was one of, I think, 10 selections. So that meant that they were just moving into a point where we would get bulk volumes of fruit that would enable us to do some of that really in-depth evaluation of the fruit.
In the next 11 years, that in-depth evaluation consisted of tons of tests, evaluating the Cosmic Crisp size, shape, color, crunchiness, juiciness, and tartness. The WSU team tests the ripeness of the apple, using iodine to determine the best time to harvest.
What it does is that iodine then it binds to the starch that's in the fruit. As the fruit ripens, that starch turns to sugar. And so when you've stained it with iodine and it's fully purple or black, that's showing that it's really immature, it's very starchy.
The lighter the flesh, the sweeter the apple.
See that juice? The juice inside makes it a pleasant thing to eat.
I can eat this all day.
There you go.
That's how you know.
But with hundreds of consumer favorites already on the market, how can a new apple stand a chance?
It takes a big budget, takes a big industry, and it takes a big product. All those things have to come together.
The Cosmic Crisp has it all. Named for its galactic-looking skin, experts expect the apple to take over the industry. So far, Washington farmers have grown 12,000 acres of Cosmic Crisp trees, which falls in the middle of apple production for the state. And to catch up with its competitors, $10.5 million have already gone into marketing the apple, and it even has its own commercial. The variety will only be available to state-based growers for the first 10 years.
The growers, they deserve that advantage. They contributed to the research project, and so they have a 10-year head start.
The Cosmic Crisp hit the ground running on December 1st, with about 450,000 bushels for sale in the U.S. and produce aisles of stores like Walmart and Kroger's. It sells for about $3 to $5 a pound as a premium apple variety, which is more than twice the price of standard varieties like the Gala. But the apple's creators are confident the Cosmic Crisp is up for the challenge.
We want people to really enjoy apples, and we felt to have that happen, we had to give them better apples. We had to rise above Golden Delicious, Red Delicious, Macintosh. We had to have an apple that was a much better eating experience. So that was our goal.
In Japan, ruby Roman grapes are sold only if they reach the perfect size, color, and sugar content.
これだけの大粒で鮮やかな赤色の品種っていうのはもう世界探してもないので、そのもう圧倒的な、特徴、これはもうルビーロマンだけしかないということで、それも非常に価値が高いと。
In Japanese culture, fruits are considered a luxury and gift item. In fact, Japanese supermarkets often won't sell fruits if they have any blemishes or aren't the right shape. Inspectors like Kazuyoshi Sakurai use very specific criteria to scrutinize each grain or individual grape that grows in Kahoku City.
まず1つ目には、ルビーロマンの色ということで、2つ目には、粒の大きさということで、1粒あたり 20g ということですので、約 30mm 以上あるかということを確認しています。あと3つ目に、糖度ということで、専用の非破壊糖度計で、糖度を測りまして、糖度18度以上を確保しております。
Superior grade grapes make up almost 90% of the harvest, and special superior grapes make up about 10%. Superior bunches can cost between $90 and $140. Special superior grapes are priced at $180 to as high as $450. But there's still one category higher than these two.
そして最上級の、規格がプレミアムということになりまして、プレミアムに関しましては、通常の、粒の大きさが1粒約 20g というものなんですけども、プレミアムに関しては全ての粒で 30g 以上という決まりがありまして、
Only 1 or 2 bunches a year qualify as premium in Kahoku. Farmers hope to sell 1 bunch of premium grapes for over $1,000. 2 bunches made the cut this year, but in 2019 and 2020, no grapes qualified for the premium category. No matter the grade though, all ruby Roman grapes have a uniquely sweet flavor, according to Isu.
甘いんですけども、すごく香りが良くて、上品な甘さで酸味が少ないです。で、あとすごく特徴的なのが、果汁がものすごく多くてすごくジューシーです。なので皮を剥いて食べるときに、もう皮を剥くと汁が滴り落ちてきて、口に入れたときにもう果汁が飛び散るぐらいジューシーなのが特徴です。
Harvesting starts in July, just in time for one of 2 main Japanese gift-giving holidays, Ochugen. The grapes are only grown in Ishikawa Prefecture, and they're cultivated in greenhouses, where farmers have better control over the growing process. Each grape is monitored and manicured, so that every one in a bunch looks totally identical. To produce grapes of the proper size, they use a grape thinning device and a simple pair of scissors.
どういった粒を取ればいいのか、どういった房を取ればいいのか、色のムラができちゃうとやっぱりダメなので、それをこのハサミでですね、粒をいかに揃えるか、形よく揃えるか。
The second factor they control is light.
房にある程度光が当たらないと、色が進まないので、明るさの管理というものも、すごく、他の品種以上に意識します。
One way to control light is by adding or removing leaves near the vines. To confirm that enough light is getting into the greenhouse, farmers use a different tool.
明るさを、スマートフォンで、カメラでですね、かざすとですね、その空の割合が、瞬時に 数値化されて
Using a program they developed with a private IT company, farmers can then identify how much light they need to add or subtract.
この辺りの房の周囲だいぶ暗いので、まず枝葉を、かき分けてですね、房の周囲に光を入れるように光環境を改善します。だいぶ明るくなりました。
The final, complicated element for ruby Roman grape farmers is temperature.
で、猛暑の年も多いんですけども、ハウス内がですね、やはりもう30度超えてすごく暑いと、綺麗な赤色にならずですね、色が白っぽく色が進まない。
They open the sides and ceilings of the greenhouse to keep it as cool and ventilated as possible. And still, not all the ruby Roman grapes farmers grow will be up to standard, which is why supply is consistently limited. In 2020, only 25,000 ruby Roman bunches were up for sale. That's a tiny fraction of the total number of grapes that were for sale in Japan, which was about 163,000 metric tons in 2020. It wasn't until 2008 that the first ruby Roman grapes went up for sale. The effort to create them started in 1995, when local grape farmers and Ishikawa's Agricultural Research Center came together to develop a new breed of large red grape.
父親は現在不明です。何十品種も、品種がいろいろありまして、そこに赤色の品種、青色の品種いろいろ、混在していたわけですけども、そこの品種の、からですね、花粉が、飛んで、偶然その、交配してですね、実ができたといったことで、非常にそこはラッキーだったなと。いろいろ植わってなかったら、ルビーロマンが生まれてなかったということになります。
What they ended up with is the most expensive grape in the world. So expensive that in 2020, one bunch of these grapes sold at auction for $12,000. That's about $400 per grape. These are not just any mangoes. They are Taiyo no Tamago, or egg of the sun. Stunning, plump, red, perfectly unscratched, and incredibly sweet mangoes that are farmed in the Miyazaki prefecture of Japan. Every April, the best mangoes from the prefecture are auctioned off at Miyazaki Central Wholesale Market. But although farmers in Miyazaki dedicate an entire year to preparing these mangoes for auction, there's no guarantee that the fruit will fetch such a high price. That's because before reaching the auctioning table, a mango has to be perfect, inside and out.
大変ですね。全てのマンゴー農家さんがうまくいってるわけじゃないと思うんですよね。
So why are Taiyo no Tamago mangoes so difficult to grow? And what makes them so expensive? Mangoes farmed in Miyazaki are from the Irwin mango variety, a type often referred to as apple mango, as it turns red when ripe. Irwin mangoes are actually pretty common and are also grown in other parts of the world and sold at much lower prices. This is because the exclusivity of Taiyo no Tamago is not tied to which type of mango it is, but rather to the care it receives. In order to generate buzz at the auction, a mango needs bees. To increase their odds of success, farmers like Takuya usually rent bees during the flowering season. These are flowering mango plants. Bees play a crucial role in the pollination of the plants, as without them, mangoes would not grow as big as desired.
ミツバチにもよるんですけど、たくさんなった木には1本の木に200個くらいなるんで、これをまだ鳴らした方がいいからっていうので鳴らしてるんですよ。普段も落とすんですよ、これ。だからマンゴー農家としてはこれ作るようじゃダメなんですね。ミツバチが交配しない場合はこういう小さい実に なるんですね。もうこれ以上大きくはならないんですよ。
If a plant keeps flowering as the farmer wants, it can survive as long as 35 years. Takuya's plants are 20 years old. However, even if bees do pollinate the plants, it doesn't necessarily mean that all mangoes will qualify as Taiyo no Tamago this season. Only those that are in good shape, visibly contain pits, and are in good position will be given a chance. To successfully grow one, everything in the greenhouse needs to run smoothly. Temperature must be constant, the room ventilated, the air dehumidified, and the mangoes protected from gravity. When everything else is in place, Takuya's priority becomes the sunshine.
太陽の光が当たることによって実の色も赤い鮮やかになりますし、糖度も上がるんですね。やっぱり日陰にあると実の色も悪いですし、糖度も低くなっちゃうんで、やっぱり太陽の光はどうしても大事ですね。
If a mango slumps into the shade, Takuya will tie it with a string to bring it back up. And to make sure that sunlight touches every part of the fruit equally, he developed these light reflectors out of milk cartons.
反射板をつけることによってですね、マンゴーの実の下の方まで色がつくんですね。でこの紫のところが熟すと赤くなるんですけど、緑の部分が多いとですね、この下の方が熟しても黄色なんで、できるだけ全てを赤にするために反射板をつけています。多分パック使われる方は今のところいないんじゃないですかね。硬いんで結構水平になるんですね。以前はもっと柔らかい紙を勧められてたんですけど、それだとこう下に下がっちゃうんで、ちょっと使いづらい部分もありましたね。
Regardless of how much it's worth, Takuya treats every mango with respect. In return, every mango repays him with a unique flavor.
甘みと酸味がある感じですね。フルーティーです。表面に傷が入ってますし、赤みも下の方まで入ってないんで、これは太陽の卵にはならないと思います。
Takuya has been growing mangoes for 16 years, a craft he learned from his father. This year, he grew 9,500 mangoes in his greenhouse. They're now ready to be inspected to see how many of them have earned the coveted Taiyo no Tamago title. The first inspection is done by human eye. Inspectors closely analyze each mango's appearance to ensure they are red all throughout, with no hints of green at the bottom. Then, a machine sorts them according to sugar content, weight, and size.
それから糖度が15度以上と重量が 350g 以上、規格で言いますと 2L 以上の基準をクリアしたものだけが太陽の卵になります。
These inspections sort the mangoes into 5 grades, 2 of which are Taiyo no Tamago.
木にもよりますけど、年間でだいたいよくて 13% から 15% 程度の発生率ということですので、だいたい約全体の1割がシーズンとして太陽の卵になりますので、結構割合としては少ない方なのかなと思います。
The mangoes will now make their way to Miyazaki Central Wholesale Market for the auction. All the care and hard work that Takuya and other farmers in the prefecture put into their fruit are leading up to this very moment. The hope is to match or exceed the previous figure of 500,000 yen.
でサイトの場合ってその時期に出す方って5、6人しかいないんですね。やっぱその時のやっぱ出される方ってみんなこうライバルみたいに感じなんで、やっぱ頑張んなきゃいけないなっていうのはすごい思いますね。
皆さんおはようございます。本日は令和4年の宮崎マンゴー太陽の卵の解禁日となっております。
The auction has officially begun at the Miyazaki Central Wholesale Market. This year's 500,000 yen is 300,000 yen higher than last year and matches the 2019 record. And the farmer who grew these mangoes is Takuya.
すごいですよね。やったと思いましたね。
It's the third year in a row his mangoes fetched the highest price at the auction. They have been bought by a department store in Fukuoka.
そうです。もう11時ぐらいの飛行機に私がもう手で直接持ってそのまま福岡市にある百貨店の中のうちの売り場があるんですけども、そこにも並べます。あと福岡からこの太陽の卵っていう果物を全国に知っていただきたいという思いからつけました。
Today's outcome was a successful one for Takuya. But even in a country with a strong gift-giving culture like Japan, it's not always guaranteed that such a luxury fruit will find a buyer at auction.
だからこういうコロナの状況で、いろんな消費者も物価が上がって大変だと思うんですけど、頑張ってやっぱり市場の人がですね、販売して仲卸の人が買ってもらってですね、やっぱマンゴーファンがいるんだなと。こんな状況でもコロナで大変な状況でもちょっとした値段がついても買ってもらえる状況があるなと、やっぱり自分のご褒美にしている人がいるのかなと。
After flowering, fruiting, harvesting, and auctioning, Takuya's mango plants are ready for a new season. And the hard work isn't over yet.
花が咲いて実がなって収穫終わったらこの枝をまた戻します。一節戻してが剪定作業になります。やっぱハウスの中すごく暑いんで、その作業は結構大変ですね。納得いかなかったら納得いくまでやるみたいなところがあるんで、スポーツやってたんで負けず嫌いなところがあって、やっぱ人よりいいものを作りたいっていうのはあるんですね。それがいいのかもしれないですね。
In Mexico, farmers grow pitayas that are good for just 24 hours before they start losing their flavor and texture.
The pitaya is a type of dragon fruit. Once it is picked, time is of the essence. After 24 hours, the fruit begins to lose its flavor and texture. This makes getting pitaya to customers incredibly difficult and pushes the price higher depending on where you live. In Guadalajara, Mexico, a batch of 4,000 pitayas can sell for over $7,400. Getting your hands on some in the US can cost up to $22 for a bucket of 5 fruits. So what makes this fruit worth the painstaking task? And why is it so expensive? Pitayas grow on cacti, just like prickly pear and dragon fruit. They are often confused with dragon fruit because of the similarity of their names, pitaya and pitahaya. But unlike dragon fruit or prickly pears, which grow all over the world, pitaya can only be found in Mexico and some parts of the US. In the Mexican state of Jalisco, these spiky fruits become a major driver of the local economy when they're in season.
Lo que pasa es que la pitaya tiene mejor sabor, más color y es más dulce, pues. Como la tuna pone que sea tuna, pero no es el mismo sabor que la pitaya. Y la pitaya, como dice, es un manjar de los dioses aquí, porque pues la fruta pues es muy buena, pues todo el mundo la consume, porque tiene mucha fibra, muchas proteínas, muchas pues vitaminas y todo eso.
Trinidad has been working with pitayas for 15 years. He started as a picker and now runs a wholesale and retail business.
Empecé desde abajo, desde cero, con mi canasto en el lomo vendiendo por las calles, así empecé el negocio.
He usually harvests the fruit during the night time and into the early hours of the morning. Pitayas grow on a type of cactus called the organ pipe cactus. These cacti can grow up to 30 feet tall. To grab a pitaya at the top of the plant, Trinidad uses a long reed fitted with spikes.
Ya está buena, mira. Es chiquita blanca. Ya está buena, ya nomás, mira. Ya estas tan buenas, ya se baja, mira. Y ya casi vienen peloncitas, mira. El sabor viene siendo dulce, a media pitaya arenosita, muy sabrosa, de que puede estar recién cortado ahorita, ¿verdad?
Pitayas are available for a very short window. The season usually starts around mid-April and lasts 60 to 70 days, with the first summer rains dictating the end of the season. Unlike dragon fruit or prickly pears, pitayas grow in much smaller numbers. In general, an organ pipe cactus can give 1 fruit per day, or 60 pitayas, for the whole season. To start bearing fruit sparingly, the cactus needs at least 8 years. To reach full maturity, it needs 15. In comparison, at full maturity, a dragon fruit cactus can give 3 waves of fruit per season of 100 fruits each.
Hay árboles, pues, pitayas como estos, tú de perdida tienen 70, 80 años.
Once the fruit is off the cactus, that's when the race begins. Pitayas are made up of 85% water and are very perishable. They can only last 24 hours before losing texture and flavour. When Trinidad is done picking, he has to process the fruit straight away if he wants it to arrive fresh to his customers. Before they can be sold, workers have to quickly remove the dozens of spines, by hand. While the spines are hard, the fruit is very fragile, so when cleaning, one has to be careful not to peel off too much skin. This would make the fruit more tender, and it would spoil faster.
Lo que pasa es de que, como es una fruta muy delicada, entre más cosas traigas en la mano, por decirlo así, un guante grueso, no sabes qué tanta fuerza puedas ponerle al agarrar la pitaya. Como esta, mira, que es bien dura, si yo, por decirlo así, le trajera un guante, o bien la apachurro, o con la fuerza que estoy poniéndole al cuchillo, saldría volando la pitaya. Entonces es preferible más que nada con la mano. Mayugas menos la fruta, y aparte que mayugas menos la fruta, la pitaya queda más.
At the peak of the season, Manuel can clean 3,000 to 4,000 pitayas a day. With this many pitayas, a good batch could be worth anywhere from $2,000 to $2,700. Pitayas are praised for their sweetness. They are also rich in vitamin C, fibre, potassium, iron, and calcium. And their seeds are rich in omega-3. Pitayas come in 4 colours: white, red, purple, and yellow. Despite being the same type of cactus, each plant will give a different colour pitaya with a different degree of sweetness.
Pero de esos colores hay muchas tonalidades. Hay varias amarillas, varias rojas, varias blancas. Y esta es la amarilla que te decía, mira. Esta es blanca, mira. Esta nosotros la conocemos como la gotita de miel. Esta pitaya que estoy pelando, mucha gente la conoce como las pitayas de los pillos, que vienen siendo mis abuelos. Son muy diferentes.
Because they spoil so quickly, there are a few ways that pitayas get distributed, each way determining the price. Manuel sells them at a stand that he has operated with his wife for the last 7 years.
Haz de cuenta que se manejan por canastos. Y llegamos a tener hasta como 20, 25 canastos en temporada alta, cuando hay bastante.
Que te comes una y ahí está la espinita con la de que, déjame como la otra, déjame como la otra. A mí como vendedor me ha tocado conocer personas que parados aquí en mi puesto se han comido 50, 60 pitayas, de un tamaño no muy grande, claro, ¿verdad?
Market stands like Manuel's are usually run by local families, but pitayas are not just sold at local markets. You can find Trinidad on the Colima-Guadalajara highway at the 49-kilometre mark, where he sells his pitayas from a roadside stand. Pitayas are cheapest when they're sold locally. In Mexico, the final price varies on the size of the fruit, but also on location. A batch of 4,000 high-quality pitayas that could be worth up to $2,700 in a local market could fetch over $7,400 for the extra hassle it took to rush them to the city. Andres runs a pitaya delivery company with his brother, Juan Pablo. They buy pitayas from wholesalers like Trinidad and Manuel and distribute them to customers in Guadalajara, the capital of Jalisco, and the only place, apart from small towns, where pitayas are readily available.
Sí, con nuestro esquema de negocio que tenemos de repartir cada pitaya a domicilio, se ha abierto una gran oportunidad para las familias que viven aquí, porque te platicaba que realmente la forma de conseguirlas es limitada.
Getting pitayas out of town and into the city is a challenge. The pitayas have been off the tree for a few hours now, and there's a high chance some of them will not make it to their destination.
Es muy complicado también el tema de la logística porque tienes que cuidar mucho el producto, ¿no? Porque si lo andas paseando también se anda haciendo aguado, se anda haciendo pues, todos esos temas que pasa de la pitaya, ¿no? Entonces también tienes que cuidar que a un repartidor no lo mandes a tantos lados porque pues, va a andar paseándose y con el sol y así, entonces es muy común que cuando nosotros compramos la pitaya, a la hora de repartirla y así, tenemos un cierto porcentaje de merma.
This is why pitayas are extremely rare to find outside of Mexico. Only a handful of companies will take the risk to ship the fruits abroad, either by driving hours across the US border or shipping them first class. These are usually pre-orders that reach the customer directly, rather than transporting the pitayas to another market stall. The final price will be double what a customer in Jalisco would pay.
Pues cualquier fruta que está en el mercado pues se mide por kilo, ¿no? Aquí se mide por pieza. Es muy especial este tema y se cobra por pieza porque es únicamente en Jalisco, únicamente en ciertos pueblos de Jalisco. Básicamente es el 90% de la fruta viene de esos pueblos. Los tienes que transportar hacia Guadalajara, entonces todo ese proceso pues, conlleva un gasto, entonces por eso se incrementa el precio, ¿no?
But it's the unpredictability of the season that plays the biggest role.
La gente lo paga 5 veces más del valor real, pero por el tema de que ya volvió la temporada de pitayas, hay poca, entonces hay que venderla más cara, ¿no?
In the last few years, pitayas have been even sweeter for locals. The demand is growing. Companies like Andres and Juan Pablo's are spreading the word outside of town, and the pitaya market is getting bigger. The weather has also been ideal for pitaya. In recent years, the rains have arrived a bit later than usual and brought less precipitation, lengthening the growing season. But this is not necessarily good news in the long term. While cacti thrive in deserts and the high temperatures allow their fruit to grow, they are not immune to extreme heat. A 2022 study found that 31% of the world's cactus species are currently threatened with extinction. By 2050, that number could increase to 90% as a result of the climate becoming hotter and drier. This pressure could make the pitaya an even more fleeting fruit. Even now, in full bloom, one season is not enough for locals like Trinidad to support themselves year-round.
De un negocio, suponiendo, no se vive uno solo, pues saque de otra cosa, de un lado sale, le vas tapando a otro y así te vas, pues no nomás. Pues como tengo varios negocios, pues no nomás vivo de una sola cosa, ¿verdad? Pues como dices, tengo la tienda, tengo la tortilla de abarrotes, la carnicería, tengo aquí todo esto sembrado de mezcal, tengo ganado de puercos, borregos.
In Thailand, farmers carefully grow durian, known for its unpleasant smell, but also as a token of respect.
Thailand is expected to harvest almost 1 million metric tons of durian in 2021. Durian is native to several tropical climates around the world, including Thailand. Thailand alone grows over 300 varieties, but the most expensive durians are grown in Nanthaburi province. They're known as Nant durian. Nant makes up the highest grade of durian in Thailand and is often given as a token of respect. But even among Nant durians, 2 varieties stand out. The most expensive, Kanyao durian, and the slightly more affordable Montong durian.
เพราะว่าผลไม้ต้องเข้าใจว่าคำว่าผลไม้มันก็เหมือนงานโมเดลที่แบบว่าออกมาทุกลูกแต่ก็ไม่เหมือนกันทุกลูก รสชาติมันก็จะแตกต่างกันทุกลูกมันไม่เหมือนกันทุกลูกเหมือนกันก็คือ
Not durian is described as having refined and sweet pulp with a mild fragrance and creamy texture, whereas other lesser grade durians are said to have a stronger smell and a watery texture. Not durian has a distinct taste and smell for two main reasons: Nanthaburi's environment and the growing practices of its farmers. Nanthaburi province has been a center for durian farming in Thailand for over 300 years. Farmers in this region have been honing their technique for generations, using their resources and skill to grow the highest quality durians possible. One of the resources they depend on is the Chao Phraya River, which flows through Nanthaburi and fertilizes the soil.
แล้วดินที่เราปลูกเนี่ยเป็นดินเหมือนดินตะกอนตั้งแต่สมัยปู่ย่าตายายอะค่ะมีใบท้องหลามีพืชตระกูลถั่วปลูกเพื่อให้บำรุงดินอยู่ตลอดเวลาค่ะรสชาติเลยแตกต่างจากที่อื่น
But the river water isn't used to water the durian trees themselves. Farmers in Nanthaburi prefer to buy fresh water, which they believe improves the final quality of the durian.
จะบอกว่าทุเรียนนมเป็นทุเรียนที่ปราณีตในการปลูกใช่ไหมของคนอื่นเขาคือเขาใช้น้ำบาดาลน้ำในแม่น้ำลำธารได้แต่ของจังหวัดนนท์ต้องใช้น้ำประปาคือคุณทำสวยคุณก็ต้องซื้อน้ำแล้วอะก็คือถ้าเวลาปลูกทุเรียนนนท์เนี่ยเขาจะปลูกด้วยการวิธีการยกโคกยกให้สูงขึ้นแล้วก็ปลูกต้นไม้ใต้โคนต้นเพื่อให้ความชื้นแล้วก็รดน้ำทุกวันละครั้งตอนเช้า
After planting, it takes about 6 years for a healthy durian tree to bear fruit. Once the trees start to flower, farmers count the days until the fruits are ripe. Depending on the breed, this can span 90 to 150 days. But it's not only the time and labor that make not durian so pricey. The costs to provide this kind of care add up. Just the water costs about $2,200 per year.
ถ้าสมมติพี่ถามหนูบ้างนะว่าถ้าหนูเป็นชาวสวนอะหนูปลูกก้านยาวปีนี้ทั้งสวนหนูมี10ลูกหนูขายก้านยาว10ลูกในราคาโลละ160 บาทเหมือนคนอื่นเขาอะหนูจะได้ค่าน้ำคืนไหม
Farmers have to constantly check the trees and look for any infections or insects, and they wrap each durian in plastic to protect it. They must harvest the durians one by one, when each fruit is perfectly ripe.
ตัดทุกลูกแล้วก็ห้อยเชือกแล้วก็หย่อนลงมาทีละ1ลูกเราจะไม่ตัดโละต้นนะเราจะคัดแต่เฉพาะต้นที่แก่ถ้าเป็นสีน้ำตาลแล้วคั่วแข็งคั่วโปรอย่างเงี้ยก็คือสามารถตัดได้
These time-consuming and labor-intensive techniques have a major impact on the flavor and final value of not durian. A 2.5 kilogram Montong durian from Apridanya farm can cost over $100. That's about a third of the price of Kanyao, making it a more popular and affordable option for customers.
ก็ที่ชอบเป็นพิเศษก็จะเป็นหมอนทองค่ะเพราะว่าคือมันจะเป็นอะไรที่เนื้อแต่ละคนก็อาจจะชอบไม่เหมือนกันเนาะแต่ที่พี่ชอบหมอนทองเพราะว่าเนื้อเขาจะละเอียดเนื้อเขาจะแน่นแล้วถ้าอร่อยเลยนี่ก็คือต้องกรอบนอกหวานในอย่างเงี้ยค่ะก็คือจะอร่อยอันนี้ก็คือเป็นตัวที่ชอบค่ะค่ะ
Kanyao, on the other hand, is the most expensive not durian you can buy. Depending on its size, Kanyao durians from Apiranya farm can range from about $380 to $530 per fruit. But despite Kanyao's steep price, demand for this variety is growing, and supply can't keep up.
อย่างปีนี้นะคนจองก้านยาวประมาณ60ลูกคือเต็มหมดแล้วนะโลละ 5,000 บาทนะไม่มีลูกค้าท่านใดต่อเลยนะแต่ยอดก้านยาวสำหรับปีหน้าเนี่ยที่คีย์ออเดอร์มานะตอนนี้คือจองไปอยู่ที่ 60-70 ลูกแล้วนะซึ่งยังไม่รู้เลยนะว่าปีหน้าก้านยาวจะติดได้พอกับผลผลิตที่จองไหม
One of the main challenges is the climate crisis.
แล้วการดูแลก็คือจะยากกว่าเดิมตรงที่อากาศเปลี่ยนแปลงเพราะว่าจังหวัดนนท์ล้อมรอบด้วยหมู่บ้านล้อมรอบด้วยคนเมือง ก็คือดูแลยากนิดนึงไหนจะน้ำเน่าน้ำเสียฟันพิษมลพิษอะไรอย่างเงี้ยแต่เราก็ใช้ประคองด้วยการปรับภูมิศาสตร์ปลูกต้นทองหลางให้รอบสวนช่วยปรับอุณหภูมิให้เย็นขึ้นอะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะ
The tropical climate required to grow durian also makes the farms susceptible to floods, storms, and other extreme weather. In 1995 and 2011, floods destroyed almost all of the durian trees in Nandaburi. In 2011, about 1,100 acres of durian trees were leveled, and only 17 acres survived. After this, Benjamin had to start the 6-year process over.
อันนี้จะเป็นทุเรียนที่รอดจากน้ำท่วมปี 54 ต้นมันก็จะใหญ่ขนาดเนี้ยสูงจะเป็นพันธุ์หมุนทองอายุยิ่งนานรสชาติยิ่งอร่อยทุเรียนอะ
This is a golden kiwi, a unique strain of kiwi fruit developed through crossbreeding to be sweeter and softer than a normal green kiwi.
Green's old school. Green is big, brown, very different sorts of shapes. Gold just looks like it's a different, more subtle palate, sweeter, and it's a more consistent piece of fruit.
Even though they're smaller, golden kiwis cost almost twice as much as green kiwis. In fact, they're so valuable that some sprouts have been smuggled out of New Zealand and sold in lots for 60,000 New Zealand dollars. That's because this specific kiwi can't be grown without permission from its copyright holder, Zespri. Unless you want to be sued and ordered to pay $14 million, like one international smuggler was. Growing golden kiwis is so lucrative that it's caused a feud between New Zealand and China, where the fruit is native. But how do you copyright a fruit? And what exactly makes these kiwis so expensive?
It's a very easy fruit to eat. It's very soft, without being squashy or squishy. It's got the hints of melon with it, with the kiwi fruit. Look, it's a beautiful tasting fruit. It really is.
While green kiwis have a thick, hairy skin that provides a protective layer, golden kiwis are completely hairless and much more easily damaged. Here at Wiroa Orchard, located in Kerikeri in the heart of Northland, New Zealand, golden kiwis are carefully harvested with gloved hands. This drives up labour costs.
It's a very easy fruit to pick, but you must take a lot of care not to damage it. We have teams of pickers that have picking bags and wear gloves on their hands so that they don't damage the fruit with their fingernails. And it's all done by hand by snapping the fruit off and putting it into a bag, and then the bags are emptied into bins. A team of 15 pickers, when they're doing well, they would be filling a bin roughly every 3 to 4 minutes.
But before Peter and his team are even allowed to harvest, a sample from the orchard must meet certain criteria.
Taste is one, number of seeds, or the colour of the seeds, the blackness of the seeds. You can't just have 1 or 2 or 3 out of the 5 pass or whatever it is. You must pass on all of them.
This is because this particular variety of golden kiwi, called Sungold, is controlled by Zespri, a cooperative of kiwi fruit growers in New Zealand. Zespri created Sungold by crossbreeding different yellow kiwis.
Within 2 years, it was a delicious, large, golden globe, and it was just the perfect piece of fruit.
And it was this perfected strain that helped New Zealand rebuild its kiwi industry. In 2010, disease nearly wiped out most of the country's kiwi orchards, causing $900 million worth of damage. But one newly developed kiwi strain resisted infection, Zespri's Sungold. Sungold quickly became popular for its consistently sweet taste and has proved more profitable than its green counterpart. Fast forward to today, and this perfected strain makes up about 67% or $1.9 billion of New Zealand's kiwi export value. But not just anyone can grow these kiwis. Zespri only releases a certain number of licenses every year, and growers bid on them. In 2022, the median price for a Sungold license hit $801,000 per hectare.
We have IP protections around who's able to grow it and who shouldn't be growing it. And gold kiwi fruit it's a handcrafted product. Yeah, we grow it in nature, but so many hours go into it. They get touched so much, and whether it be fertilisation, pruning, tying down the fruiting wood, thinning flowers, it just needs so much attention.
But golden kiwis weren't always this perfect. When they first hit New Zealand's produce market 10 years ago, the fruits looked and tasted a lot different.
That fruit was disgusting. And they were these small, hard bullets. It was right at the start of when we'd started growing it on scale as a country. And like all new bits of fruit, you need to figure out how to grow it.
Today, it can take 5 years before a new Sungold kiwi orchard is ready for harvest. Joshua Murphy is in charge of planting golden kiwis here at Wiroa Orchard, one of the largest commercial orchards in the region. The orchard contains about 72 hectares of gold kiwis. It's on Joshua to strategically cultivate vines that will bear high-quality fruit for the next 30 to 50 years.
It's not just a kind of we chuck the plant in the ground and it grows a million fruit that big, no, there's actually a lot of selection. If we overcrop it too much, we'll get a bunch of fruit like that aren't going to sell. So we have to select how many canes we put into the canopy in the winter pruning.
Starting in June, during New Zealand's wintertime, Joshua begins pruning the vines and training its canes or branches to grow on a trellis and eventually form a canopy.
Yeah, so this system that I'm doing here with the poles and the strings, again, it's based on a science because these canes will grow quicker and longer and stronger growing on that direction rather than just letting them flap in the wind.
Training the vines to grow upward also forces the plants to store more sugar at the top, resulting in sweeter kiwis.
I think it's quite nice. It's my partner, she says it's like a mix between a kiwi fruit and a tamarillo. Yeah, they're more of a designer fruit if that makes any sense. The green ones are quite nice too, but the gold ones have just got that extra bit in them. I'll eat a few each season, but I won't. I don't indulge myself in them too much now. I make desserts out of them.
A golden kiwi orchard typically needs more hands on deck because of its large size. Since golden kiwi vines produce less fruit, the orchards are usually larger than those for green kiwis. A typical green kiwi orchard might have 12,000 to 14,000 trees per hectare. Meanwhile, a golden kiwi orchard needs 16,000 to 18,000 trees per hectare to produce enough fruit to make it worth it for farmers.
So the work I'm doing now on this plant here gets done on about 80,000 plants in this orchard. And this is just the very initial stage of setting up the leaders.
Joshua strategically trims the vines to produce these perfectly sweet golden kiwis. Depending on the amount of growth, it takes him anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes per plant. Thinning out the vines by hand allows him to target canes that have started to produce misshapen fruit. Doing this also raises labour costs, since all the thinning must be done by an experienced hand.
Most people, I'd say, that are overseas that are buying a kiwi fruit, they probably think it comes from a tree. They probably think someone's just planted a tree. I don't think a lot of people actually understand how much labour and work goes into creating the product that they're eating.
After the kiwis are harvested, every kiwi is carefully inspected.
Consumers don't want to go one day in the supermarket looking for their gold kiwi fruit and find that it's not there anymore, or that it tastes slightly different, or the quality's not as good. No one likes a blemish, and it's in some ways a bit sad because it still tastes just as nice. But premium fruit needs to look perfect, and gold kiwi fruit is pretty unforgiving because it's such a smooth, round piece of fruit. It looks beautiful. Any mark on it, you can notice it.
Shipping from New Zealand to most countries is already quite expensive due to the distance.
and not many ships come down here. There isn't that much going on down in Aotearoa, New Zealand that you need a big container ship for outside of horticulture and dairy and meat. Therefore, the cost of shipping it's pretty expensive when it comes to the contribution of that cost to the price of a piece of fruit.
Luckily though, golden kiwis don't expire quickly, another quality that sets them apart from green kiwis. Zespri says that while a ripe green kiwi lasts up to 5 days, a golden kiwi can last up to 7. The grower-owned co-op is the main exporter of New Zealand's kiwi fruits. Today, the island country controls 30% of the global kiwi supply.
In a way, Zespri's coordinating all those efforts of New Zealand kiwi fruit growers into a coordinated breeding program, and it's one of the larger breeding programs in the world when it comes to horticulture. And as a result, we get these beautiful pieces of fruit, but it is a lot of work to get to that end point of a beautiful piece of gold kiwi fruit in the supermarket.
However, after a kiwi grower successfully smuggled sun gold sprouts overseas, a number of illegal orchards popped up in China. Zespri has attempted to regain control of its golden kiwi strain, but it may be too late. The smuggler was fined for $14 million in damages, but since then, the unauthorized sun gold orchards have doubled in size. Ironically, kiwis originated in China, where they're known as gooseberries. While other countries struggled to commercialize the gooseberry, New Zealand's humid climate has made it ideal for cultivating and perfecting this unique fruit. And now, New Zealand's golden kiwis are still the, well, gold standard.
The world's most popular bananas are becoming vulnerable to the Panama disease fungus, forcing farmers to take extra caution.
You probably know the Cavendish banana.
You can find this type of banana in every supermarket around the world.
They're so popular because they're yummy, they look nice, and they ripen as they transport.
It's high yielding, so it's got quite a thick skin, and so travels well and tastes pretty good. Comes in its own package.
But there's a problem.
They are sterile, they don't have seeds.
No seeds means Cavendish bananas are clones of each other. So the only way to propagate them is in vitro, or by taking new growths called suckers from the base of an older plant. But since they're all genetic copies, Cavendish are really vulnerable to disease.
The domino effect, if you have everything grown with just one clone, one disease can kill everything, plant by plant.
That's exactly what's happening with TR4, one of the deadliest plant diseases out there. The fungus doesn't spread to humans, but it does eventually kill the banana plant, so no more fruit grows. Scientists guess the fungus probably started somewhere in Southeast Asia in the 90s and quickly spread across the globe. Then in 2019, it hit Latin America. Combined with the Caribbean, that area grows 75% of the world's bananas.
Primero una reacción de mucho de impacto porque el fusario no estaba ni cerca en el continente y de repente aparece en nuestro departamento, en el departamento de La Guajira, en uno de los departamentos más importantes de producción bananera.
To make sure the fungus doesn't spread, farms across Colombia have implemented biosecurity measures. Eva Norte 2 was one of the first farms in the country to detect TR4. Workers wash down and disinfect the underside of any car that comes in, just in case there's infected soil hiding in the treads.
Entonces cualquier parte de nuestra indumentaria que entre en contacto con suelo puede convertirse en un factor de dispersión. Los zapatos los ubica en esta zona, se gira, se pone el overol y se coloca las botas de caucho con que va a ingresar al predio. El calzado es único, esto se considera zona sucia y esto es zona limpia. Zona limpia porque es la que está bajo el control de la desinfección que está de la salida hacia la finca.
Antonio's team built cement paths throughout the farm. So on their way to harvest, workers aren't walking on open soil.
Y hemos visto drásticamente cómo se reduce la cantidad de suelo que se adhiera a las botas.
Once they've reached the area ready to be harvested, workers walk through a sanitizing footbath made of ammonium.
En promedio aquí en La Guajira, un pediluvio cubre entre 35 a 40 hectáreas. Donde hay focos, en esas zonas colocamos pediluvios adicionales para cubrir la entrada y la salida de esas áreas de foco.
Out in the field, workers measure the banana fingers to make sure they're ready to harvest. They're usually ready about 12 to 13 weeks after the fruit stem shows up. One worker cuts down a 65-pound bundle, while the other catches it and carries it to the cableway. That cableway system brings all those banana bunches to the packaging plant. First, workers sanitize the bunches with chlorine.
Con el fin de retirar cualquier insecto que pueda venir del campo dentro de la fruta, como en el caso de arañas.
Then they check the bananas for quality and any signs of Fusarium damage. They cut off and throw bushels into a huge tank. That bath not only preserves the bananas, but washes off any of the latex that naturally occurs on the peel. The bananas get cut into smaller bunches of 5 to 7.
Posterior a eso viene la parte de sellado, cubierta de coronas para el tema de protección para el viaje.
Next come those famous stickers.
Pasa a la etapa de pesado de la bandeja y por último está el área de empaque.
Workers wrap the banana carefully so they don't bruise. That wrapping has holes in it so the bananas can ripen as they travel. No more than 4 hours after the bananas are harvested, those boxes end up on pallets, loaded onto trucks.
En este caso, para el día de hoy tenemos 960 cajas de bandeja 3 libras y 960 cajas de Walmart.
The bananas are trucked to the nearby port, where they're moved onto ships. This shipment's headed to the U.S. With equipment, bananas, and people moving along this global supply chain, it's easy to see how the fungus could spread. If TR4 does sneak into a farm, the Colombian government has laid out strict guidelines for containing the fungus.
En este sitio donde estamos hay una intervención que se realizó en la semana 26 del año 2019, donde este es el segundo caso de la finca de Banorte 2.
That means they've found symptoms like
the yellowing of the leaves, the splitting of the stem.
Once TR4 is identified in a plant, you can't just kill that one plant. The fungus goes about 10 feet deep into the soil.
Once the pathogen is in the soil, it's almost impossible to eradicate.
So you have to kill off all the plants in that area.
Nosotros en área productiva pues que hemos tenido que erradicar están alrededor de 137 hectáreas. Son las que en su momento que fueron eliminadas por la presencia de esa planta sospechosa o esa planta positiva para Fusarium.
To keep operating the rest of the farm, Evan Norte 2 followed the government's 3-zone plan.
Una que es la zona A, la zona roja, que es en la zona más cercana a la planta con síntomas. Se hacen las labores de inyección.
The injected herbicide kills all the plants in Zone A.
Y adicionalmente a eso se les aplica unos tratamientos de aplicación de urea y se cubre con carpa.
That tarps so birds won't land on the fungus and spread it around. There are also canals around the zone to keep any water away from the infected area. In Zone B, called the buffer zone,
que también se inyectan todas las plantas con el fin de como una barrera entre esa zona y la zona de cultivo.
Finally, in Zone C, plants are allowed to grow, but they're constantly monitored for signs of TR4. Jose estimates biosecurity has cost this farm as much as $5 million since 2019. So they're pricey, but the measures are working at keeping the fungus at bay.
En todo el tema de contención, el Magdalena y el Cesar son departamentos libres de Fusarium raza 4 tropical en este momento.
No hay baja en el tema de productividad hasta la fecha.
These biosecurity measures have contained the fungus in Colombia and kept it from spreading to Ecuador, the largest exporter of bananas in the world. But fungus can wipe out an entire fruit variety if not stopped. We know because it's happened before. In the early 1900s, a banana called Gros Michel was the most popular. But by the 1950s,
one strain of the Panama disease wiped out the whole production of Gros Michel.
Luckily, Cavendish was resistant to that first strain, so it took over as the banana of choice. The problem was banana companies built their entire supply chains around this one Cavendish variety. In 2019, they exported 20 million bananas and supported millions of jobs globally. But now, the Cavendish is also vulnerable.
The history repeats itself now, with the tropical race 4 and the Cavendish.
Cooking bananas like plantains are also at risk for TR4.
A risk for food security because the plantains are staple food in Latin America, in Africa, and many other countries. They are part of our daily diet.
So yeah, the newest race of Fusarium is scary for both Cavendish and plantains. But this time around, we have advanced science. Researchers across the globe are working toward one goal.
Es buscar materiales que sean resistentes a raza 4 tropical.
This guy actually invented a banana that did just that. Back in 2019, Dr. James Dale announced that his team had successfully injected the DNA from a resistant banana into a Cavendish, and it worked.
We found the solution. We have a line of Cavendish which appears to be completely resistant to TR4. The thing we haven't done yet is a taste test, and that's because they're GM. They look, smell, feel exactly the same as every other banana. We've only changed one gene.
But no one would buy his miracle banana because it was genetically modified.
A nivel internacional, las variedades modificadas genéticamente no son una solución ni siquiera tanto por el consumidor como por el comprador, como los que compran la fruta no aceptan.
In the EU, most member countries have either partly or fully banned GMOs. In the US, they're allowed but feared. One argument against GMOs is that these modified plants would quickly spread their genes and kill out biodiversity. But with bananas, that's not a problem.
The genes don't move because they are sterile. You can grow a GM banana next to a non-GM banana for 50 years and the gene will not move from one to the other. Incredibly frustrating. There's the solution, but it's a scientific solution, but not a political solution.
So scientists had to go back to the drawing board, using what they learned from James to play the non-GMO game. Fernando is a breeder for Kijin, a genetics company in the Netherlands. And he thinks the best way to get around GMO regulations is through traditional breeding, meaning you take two different types of bananas, the Cavendish and one that is resistant, and you essentially have them mate. And their kid is hopefully resistant to Panama disease, but still tastes good, like Cavendish.
Crossbreeding or traditional breeding is something that happens every day in nature. So the bees are pollinating the different flowers with other flowers. So that's what we are doing here. We are acting as bees.
Fernando has found a few resistant bananas to cross with Cavendish, but
most of them are not even edible bananas, are the bananas that are full of seeds, like these ones.
And to cross those with a Cavendish is hard.
They are sterile, very difficult to breed. It's not impossible. So you can try to cross, but you need to do it many times to get only a few seeds.
For James to make that first GMO banana, it took him
nearly 10 years since our first field trial.
For those future bananas that are traditionally bred, it'll take just as long.
It will take lots of years because the life cycle of the banana is quite slow.
But the longer it takes to traditionally breed a resistant Cavendish, the more the disease spreads, and the more strains of Fusarium could be released. Fernando says there's a bigger picture way to attack this problem: diversity. Take tomatoes, for example. You go to the grocery store and there may be 10 or more different types of tomatoes. Cherry, vine, beef, Roma. That's diversity. So if one tomato gets in trouble, it won't be a huge loss. Fernando and his colleagues have the same vision for bananas.
We have red bananas, pink bananas. Why not try to incorporate that into the market so that you can go to the supermarket and have a complete bench of different options of bananas that you can choose.
There are hundreds of different banana varieties around the world. A friend of mine collected one up in Papua New Guinea that he said, if you didn't know it, you'd think you're eating a strawberry. So amazingly different flavors.
And diversity would also help farms.
But if you have different types of bananas grown together, probably one banana will be more resistant than the next one. So that one can stop the spreading of the disease to the next plant.
So why haven't companies diversified? Because it's too expensive and complicated to change a $25 billion industry built around a monoculture. So until a solution is found, these biosecurity measures will have to be the short-term fix for keeping the big business of bananas alive.
Es un antes y un después, el Fusarium. Muchas lecciones nos hizo abrir los ojos sobre muchas necesidades que tenía el sector que no visibilizábamos.
In Vietnam, farmers sell fragile Buddha's hand fruit that customers often use for tea and worship.
This is Ba Quet, a farmer in Dak So, Vietnam, a small village 45 minutes outside Hanoi. He is one of many farmers in the area supplying these citrons to the capital city.
Thì có nghĩa là cứ mỗi một năm thì mình cứ nhân cái sản lượng vườn lên. Bây giờ như năm nay của mình là đang có 2 vườn. Nó rơi vào hơn 600 gốc. Thì hiện tại năm nay thì bây giờ là vẫn đang cho thu hoạch.
Unlike lemons or oranges, fingered citron has very little juice or pulp. It can be eaten, but it has a mild taste.
Ăn được, thế nhưng mà nó không ngon thôi.
The appeal is in its highly flavorful and aromatic rind.
Thế nhưng mà nó lại chỉ có mùi thơm thôi. Mà mùi thơm của cái phật thủ này thì nó rất là nhẹ và rất là thơm. Nó không như là cái mùi bưởi cam. Nhưng mà quả bưởi thì nó sẽ bị hăng, bị lồng. Quả phật thủ thì nó rất thơm, rất là mát, rất dễ chịu.
Buddha's hand citrons are incredibly sought after during the Mid-Autumn Festival, known as Tết. This is one of the most important celebrations in Vietnamese culture. The fruits are displayed as an ancestral offering and used in homes to freshen the air. This small village will be the lead supplier of these citrons for the event, so demand will be higher than usual. Today, Barquet and his team are harvesting 300 fruits based on the order of one customer.
Thì cái vấn đề mà tâm linh thì người ta rất là tín. Đấy, thế trên ngày giỗ, ngày Tết là gần như là gia đình nào cũng có trái Phật thủ bày trên bàn thờ để thắp hương gia tiên, để nhớ đến cội nguồn.
The festival is the busiest time of year for Barquet.
Tết là nó chiếm khoảng 60%. 60% đấy là mình bỏ túi. Còn 40% là mình bỏ chi phí.
Axel is the main provider of Buddha's hand citron for the nationwide event, and Barquet will sell about 3 times more than usual. Because most of his fruits will be sold at the festival, timing is crucial for Barquet. His trees need to produce enough fruit on time and grow as big as possible.
Mọi người đều làm như vậy hết. Ví dụ như là bây giờ cũng có một cái máy bơm nước, cũng có một cái máy để xịt thuốc sâu. Đấy, thì cũng có một cái kéo để tỉa cành, để cắt quả. Thì bí quyết là gì? Bí quyết là mình làm cây thời điểm nào, có thể tiện cây, hãm cây đấy, thời điểm nào để cho nó ra quả Tết cho nó sai. Thế còn ngày dưng này thì ngày bình thường như này thì nó có lác đác thôi. Ví dụ cây độ 20-30 quả. Nhưng mà cái thời điểm như Tết thì cây nó 60-70 quả cơ, hàng trăm quả cũng có.
But Barquet cannot harvest them all at once. The tree naturally stores water in its roots to feed the fruit, and a complete harvest would send the tree into water shock. This can kill the tree and rot the roots. In turn, it would destroy his future harvest and damage the land.
Thực ra là cái cây này nếu như mà để mà thu hoạch, mà khi mình cắt xuống thì mình nên cắt quả thì mình cứ cắt từ từ. Cứ cắt từ từ có nghĩa là hôm nay cắt một ít, xong mai lại cắt một ít, cứ đi trao khắp vườn thì nó rất tốt cho cây.
He also prefers to harvest the fruit in dry weather, like today.
Nếu khi mình mà thu hoạch vào trời mà trời nó mưa thì nó sẽ bị nước mưa vào mà nó đã dầm thì rất là dễ thối. Thì cái này nó rất là nhiều dầu mà. Còn bắt buộc lắm thì mới phải vào thời điểm mưa. Mà khi mà cắt vào thời điểm mưa thì mình lại phải để ráo nước, khô nước trên quả thì bắt đầu mình mới quấn gói để mình đóng vận chuyển được. Không có thì nó lại hỏng nặng nề lắm.
Eyeballing the weight is also helpful to quickly fulfill the orders.
Thực ra cái này thì bọn mình nhìn quen là bọn mình biết đấy. Bọn mình nhìn quen là bọn mình biết, kể cả từ những cái size quả.
After the harvest, he will need to plant the trees in new soil.
Quay lại cũng được, thế nhưng mà chăm thì nó cũng vất vả hơn. Nó vẫn còn tồn dư một lượng cái tinh dầu trong đất. Thế nên là nó sẽ trồng, nó sẽ phải chăm vất hơn. Cây này thì nó cũng rất là khó chiều đấy. Nếu mà không biết cách thì cũng không chiều nổi nó đâu. Ví dụ như bây giờ mà mình cho nó ăn quá nhiều. Ăn quá nhiều thì nó sẽ dẫn đến bị sót rễ. Còn nếu như mình cho nó ăn nhạt đi, cho nó ít đi, giảm đi thì nó rất phàm ăn, nó rất dễ lên.
The Buddha's hand requires lots of attention and care. This is Barquet's main source of income, so he cannot make any mistakes.
Nếu như bây giờ mình mà có làm sai thì mình phải trả giá. Mà mình trả giá là gì? Là cả 1-2 năm, có nghĩa là mình không có công. Khi mà cây mà nó đã hỏng, đã chết rồi thì không thể nào mà trồng lại được nữa. Đấy, lại phải di chuyển.
Buddha's hand trees grow to about 6 feet tall and start bearing fruit after the 10th year. This is one of the reasons the fruit is so expensive compared to a lemon tree, which bears fruit after 6 to 12 months.
Năm đầu tiên mình trồng thì nó cũng có hơi vất một chút, là mình phải chăm nó như một đứa trẻ con. Vì nó còn nhỏ, nó còn yếu, là mình chăm nó lúc ban đầu là mình phải chăm nó rất cẩn thận.
He also needs to constantly trim the trees and lower the branches to encourage growth.
Và cây này thì nó cũng có cái hơi khác một chút, là nó ra hoa đậu quả ở đầu cành chứ không phải ở lách lá. Thế thì nó cũng khi bọn mình làm giàn thì là bọn mình lại phải có một cái công đoạn nữa là vít cái cành xuống, lấy cái dây vít co cái cành xuống để nó nằm một thời gian, sau đó nó ức chế thì nó tích cái nhựa thì nó sẽ bật cái hoa ở tại cái đầu cành đó. Như cái quả trên tay mình, đây là quả này là đẹp. Thế là tay ngón nó rất đều và rất dài. Đấy. Và rất là đẹp.
The closer the fruit looks to a hand, the more it can be sold for. The fingers are described as beautiful in this stage. Generally, a beautiful Buddha's hand is large and round with many even protruding fingers. Barquet prefers fruits with shorter fingers.
Thì cũng thấy nhiều người thì người ta thích là những cái quả kiểu như thế này, nó nhiều ngón chẳng hạn. Chứ mình thì mình lại không thích cái kiểu như thế này, không thích kiểu như này bằng cái quả kiểu như thế này.
Barquet's choice is not just aesthetic. Since the base is where the fruit stores its essential oils, a bigger base means a bigger and stronger scent.
Kiểu như này thì để nó được rất là lâu này. Cái ngón nó ngắn thì nó không bị mất nước. Mà không bị mất nước thì nó trông thế thôi, nhưng cái bọng dầu nó rất to.
Because of these essential oils, Buddha's hands have long been used in Asian medicine, although there's no scientific evidence to support how effective it is. The fingers expand and open up only when the fruit is ripe, but farmers can't control how the fingers are going to behave. A single tree can produce multiple fruits with different shapes.
Cái trái Phật thủ này thì nó hoàn toàn nó ra tự nhiên chứ không có tác động về cái hình dáng của quả Phật thủ được. Ví dụ như nó theo mùa, có mùa thì nó ra những cái ngón nó ít, thế nhưng mà nó dài. Có những cái mùa, những cái thời điểm nó ra thì nó ra cái ngón nó nhiều và nó ngắn hơn.
A big threat to growing the perfect fruit? Insects. When the trees are in bloom, they become very attractive to insects and pests. A serious threat is the Asian citrus psyllid, which also destroys citrus as far as the US.
Nếu như mà mình phát hiện kịp thời thì nó sẽ mất khoảng độ 5 đến 7%. Còn nếu như mà để mà không phát hiện được thì 100% luôn, 100% hỏng luôn. Những cái trái này là trái nó bị hỏng này. Nó là những cái dòng chi hút nó làm bị đen cái quả. Rất tiếc nhưng mà phải bỏ.
After the healthy fruits are harvested, there's still another important step: packaging. The fingers break off very easily, so Barquet takes special precautions to protect them.
Xe rồi lại phải lót vào đây, xong lại giấy báo với giấy mềm là phải quấn đầy đủ, không được để nó hở. Nó mà hở là những cái quả lọ nó cứ đè vào kia là nó sẽ bị hỏng mất.
With this careful wrapping, he can keep the fruits fresh and potent for at least 3 months.
Đóng gói vận chuyển mà cũng không khéo là cũng coi như đáng đẹp, cũng đáng mà nó đẹp thì nó cũng thành xấu. sản lượng năm nay là có tốt hơn năm ngoái một chút. Đấy, thì còn kể cả cái sản lượng mà của Tết năm nay.
Barquette has completed today's order and it's ready to be delivered. But it's just the start as he gets ready to sell for the festival, not only locally, but for expats honouring their ancestors, as well as new customers all over the world. Locally, he sells his fruits for 50,000 to 200,000 Vietnamese dong, about $2 to $8 each. But he also sells to international markets.
Thế có cái là bây giờ những cái quả như này bọn mình làm thì quả đẹp thì mình có thể là mình bán ở trong nước, cũng có xuất cả nước ngoài rồi. Đấy, ví dụ như có Malai, có Nga, có Anh, có Đức, và cái quả đó mình xuất khẩu sang cũng là gì? Là người Việt bên các nước là người ta dùng.
In the UK, a single-fingered citron costs £25, while in the US, a box of 5 costs $65. Pastry chefs and liquor makers also buy the citron abroad, particularly the dried versions. Barquette sells dried but his hand fingers from the less beautiful fruits. Traders only pay around $1 per kilogram. But Barquette sells several thousand tons a year.
Thực ra cái này thì nó cũng tự mình tìm tòi ra thôi, chứ cũng không có sách vở nào mà dạy mình cả. Ví dụ như là bây giờ anh mình làm thì mình có thể là mình học hỏi từ người đi trước, các cái lớp đàn anh mình. Thực ra là bây giờ mình cũng muốn chia sẻ là cái quả phật thù này được các bạn nước ngoài là biết đến nhiều hơn, hoặc là những người con xa quê đang định cư nước ngoài là người ta cũng biết và cũng được đúng những cái mà người ta mong muốn là gì, có những quả phật thù này ở bên các nước để người ta được dùng.